The morning sun cast long shadows across Earth's orbital defense platforms when the sky changed forever. Commander Lisa Harper was drinking her third cup of coffee aboard the UCS Defiance when her sensors operator called out, in a voice that made her blood freeze. "Commander, we have massive contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Multiple signatures bigger than anything in our records." Lisa set down her coffee and moved to the main display. What she saw made no sense. 12 enormous ships, each one larger than Earth's biggest space stations, hung motionless in the void around their planet. The vessels looked like they were carved from black crystal, with surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. "Get me Admiral Morrison immediately," Lisa ordered. Her hands were steady, but her heart hammered against her ribs. In her 15 years of service, she had never seen anything like this. Similar scenes played out across human space. Above Mars, Colonel Amy Sullivan watched from the surface as alien ships blotted out the red sun. On the farming world of New Geneva, Captain Ryan Mitchell tried to coordinate evacuation ships while massive shadows fell across his colony. The message was clear without words. Humanity was no longer alone, and they were badly outmatched. Admiral Jake Morrison received the reports from his command center on Earth's moon. Each update made the situation worse. The alien ships had appeared simultaneously above Earth, Mars, and all three major colony worlds. Whatever these beings were, they had technology that made human faster-than-light travel look like a child's toy. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," reported Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez, Morrison's chief tactical officer. "It's coming from all the ships at once on every frequency we monitor." The main screen flickered to life, showing a being that looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was tall and thin, with faceted surfaces that reflected rainbow colors. When it spoke, its voice came through their translators in perfect English. "I am Executor Zektar of the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel and begun expansion beyond your home system. By the laws that govern this galaxy, you must now submit to hegemony rule." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. Submit. The word carried the weight of chains. The crystal being continued speaking. "You have 72 hours to dismantle your military forces and prepare for occupation. Your governments will be dissolved and replaced with hegemony administrators. Your expansion will cease immediately, and your colonies will be relocated to designated sectors." "And if we refuse?" Morrison asked, knowing the alien could hear him. Zektar's crystalline features showed something that might have been amusement. "Observe." The transmission cut to an external view showing Earth's primary orbital defense platform, Fortress Alpha. The massive station housed enough firepower to level a continent and enough armor to withstand nuclear bombardment. Lisa watched from the Defiance as one of the alien ships fired a single brief pulse of blue light. Fortress Alpha simply stopped working. Its weapons went dark, its shields collapsed, and its reactors shut down. 20,000 people were trapped inside a dead piece of metal floating in space. "Your resistance would be brief and pointless," Zektar said as the transmission returned to his image. "We have maintained order in this galaxy for over 4,000 of your years. 12 species make up our hegemony, each one more advanced than your civilization. You cannot fight us. You can only choose between submission and extinction." The transmission ended, leaving humanity's leadership staring at blank screens. President Catherine Brooks called an emergency meeting of the Colonial Council within the hour. The great chamber beneath the Swiss Alps filled with representatives from Earth's nations and the colony worlds. The debate that followed would be remembered for centuries. "We have to surrender," said Director Chang from the Mars colony. "You saw what they did to Fortress Alpha. We can't fight that kind of power." "Fight?" Captain Eddie Brooks, the president's nephew, slammed his hand on the table. "We haven't even tried to fight yet. We're just going to roll over because they have better weapons." Dr. Amanda Price, Earth's leading expert in advanced physics, studied the recordings of the alien ships. Something bothered her about the demonstration, but she couldn't put her finger on it. "If they're so advanced," she said slowly, "why give us time to respond at all? Why not just take over immediately?" Morrison nodded. "That's been troubling me too. Either they're showing us mercy, which seems unlikely given their message, or they need something from us that requires our cooperation. Or," added Danny Rodriguez, "they're not as strong as they want us to believe." The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives called for immediate surrender to save human lives. Others demanded that they fight regardless of the odds. President Brooks listened to all of them before speaking. "I need to know everything we can learn about these aliens in the next 60 hours, she said. "Dr. Price, I want you to analyze every second of that transmission. Admiral Morrison, prepare our forces for any possibility. And I want someone to find out if these hegemony ships have any weaknesses at all." As the meeting broke up, Morrison pulled Danny Rodriguez aside. "What do you really think our chances are?" Danny looked at the data again. "Based on what we've seen? 0. They can shut down our most powerful weapons with a light show, but there are things about this that don't add up. If they've been conquering species for thousands of years, why are they being so formal about it? Why the ultimatum instead of just taking over? And why do they need us to dismantle our forces? If they can disable them so easily, what's the point?" Morrison stared out the window at the stars. Somewhere up there, alien ships waited for humanity's answer. "Keep thinking about those questions, Danny. Our species might depend on the answers." Meanwhile, in her laboratory, Dr. Price studied the alien transmission frame by frame. The ships were impressive, but she had spent her career studying impossible technologies. There was always a pattern, always a weakness. The question was whether humanity had enough time to find it. Above Earth, the alien ships waited in silence, their dark surfaces reflecting nothing. Inside those vessels, beings from across the galaxy prepared for what they expected to be another simple conquest. They had done this dozens of times before. Primitive species always chose submission over extinction, but they had never encountered humans before. The countdown to humanity's answer had begun. With 12 hours left before the deadline, President Catherine Brooks stood before the cameras of the world. Her face was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she began to speak. "Citizens of Earth and the colonies, after careful consideration with the Colonial Council, I must announce that humanity accepts the terms offered by the Galactic Hegemony. We surrender unconditionally and will begin dismantling our military forces immediately." Across human space, people watched in stunned silence. Some wept, others raged, but most simply felt the crushing weight of defeat. Admiral Morrison appeared on screens worldwide shortly after, ordering all military ships to power down their weapons and prepare for decommissioning. But in hidden facilities across the solar system, a different kind of preparation was taking place. Dr. Amanda Price had not slept in 48 hours. Her secret laboratory, buried deep beneath the surface of Ceres, had been studying captured alien technology for 7 years. The public didn't know about the 3 small alien craft that had crashed in the outer system during humanity's first exploration missions. They didn't know about the artifacts recovered or the breakthrough discoveries that followed. "The quantum signatures match," she told Captain Ben Carter as they stood before a massive display showing the alien ship designs. Their vessels use quantum entanglement networks for everything: communication, navigation, power distribution. "It's incredibly advanced, but it has a fatal weakness." Ben studied the data. He was one of only 50 people who knew about the Black Project that had consumed Amanda's life. "What kind of weakness?" "The network relies on perfect synchronization. If we can introduce the right kind of quantum interference, their entire fleet communication system will collapse. They'll be fighting blind." "How do we get close enough to their ships to plant interference devices?" Amanda smiled for the first time in days. "We don't need to get close. We just need to get lucky." Captain Steve Walsh piloted his fighter through the asteroid belt, supposedly on a routine patrol. His ship was one of the new stealth fighters that officially didn't exist. To any sensor sweep, it would look like just another piece of space junk drifting in the void. Hidden in his cargo bay was a device that Amanda Price had built using technology the aliens didn't know humans possessed. If her theories were correct, this small box could bring down their entire fleet. If she was wrong, Steve would die in the next few hours along with everyone else who had volunteered for this insane mission. Commander Lisa Harper received her orders through encrypted channels that the aliens couldn't monitor. The Defiance was to join a battle group forming behind Jupiter, where the gas giant's massive electromagnetic field would hide them from detection. Along with 12 other ships, she would wait for the signal to attack. On the colonies, Colonel Amy Sullivan coordinated with resistance cells that had formed the moment the aliens arrived. Miners on New Geneva had hidden weapons in asteroid facilities. Farmers on agricultural worlds had stockpiled explosives. Even children knew their roles in the desperate plan that was about to unfold. The aliens had demanded surrender, But they had made one critical error. They had given humanity time to think. Captain Tony Martinez commanded the UCS Freedom from a hidden base in the outer system. His ship was supposed to have been destroyed in a training accident 6 months ago. Instead, it had been secretly equipped with experimental weapons that pushed the limits of human engineering. Alongside 15 other destroyed ships, he waited for the moment to reveal that humanity's surrender was a lie. As the deadline approached, Executor Zektar prepared to address the humans again. The crystalline being stood on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by representatives of the other hegemony species: reptilian Sekthari, insectoid Velani, gaseous Morden, and 8 other races that had learned to submit centuries ago. "Another primitive species accepts the inevitable," commented war leader Sekthar, his scaled hide reflecting the bridge lights. "At least these humans chose survival over pointless resistance." Zektar nodded, though something troubled him about how quickly the humans had capitulated. Most species took the full 72 hours and still required demonstrations of force. These humans had surrendered with time to spare. On Earth's surface, President Brooks stood in a ceremony chamber surrounded by human military leaders. The world watched as they prepared to formally surrender to the alien representatives who had beamed down to accept their submission. But Dr. Price was watching something else entirely. "Quantum readings are stable across all target points," she reported to Admiral Morrison through their hidden communication system. "Steve's device is in position. Ben's team has their charges ready. All colonial resistance cells report ready status." Morrison took a deep breath. In his 30 years of military service, he had never ordered an operation with stakes this high. If they failed, humanity would face extinction. If they succeeded, they might buy their species time to find a real solution. "Danny, are you certain about their coordination systems?" Lieutenant Rodriguez checked his analysis one final time. "As certain as I can be, sir. If we can blind their quantum network even for a few minutes, their response time will be severely degraded. It's our only chance." The surrender ceremony began with President Brooks walking toward the alien representative. The entire world held its breath as she approached. The towering crystalline figure that had traveled across the galaxy to claim their freedom, Brooks, stopped just outside the alien's reach and looked directly into its faceted eyes. "Before we proceed with the surrender, I have one question for you." Zektar tilted his head, amused by the human's boldness.
"Speak. Did you really think we would give up without a fight?"
Brooks stepped backward and the hidden signal flashed across the solar system. In that instant, Steve Walsh activated Amanda's quantum virus from his hidden position. The device sent cascading interference through the aliens' entanglement network, causing their coordination systems to collapse in confusion. At the same moment, Ben Carter's stealth team detonated charges they had secretly placed near each alien vessel. The explosions did no damage to the mighty ships, but they released clouds of metallic particles that interfered with their sensors. Lisa Harper's battle group emerged from behind Jupiter with weapons blazing. Tony Martinez's destroyed fleet appeared from the outer system, firing everything they had at the confused alien vessels. Colonial militias attacked the smaller alien craft that had landed on their worlds. For the first time in their history, the Galactic Hegemony fleet found itself under coordinated attack by a species they had expected to surrender quietly. The aliens reacted with shock as human weapons found their targets. Several hegemony ships took damage before they could adapt to the interference. On the surface of Mars, Colonel Sullivan led an assault that captured an entire alien ground team before they knew what was happening. But humanity's greatest advantage was surprise, and surprise never lasts long. Executor Zektar recovered from his initial shock and began issuing orders to his fleet. The quantum interference was already adapting to their countermeasures. Within minutes, the aliens would regain full coordination and bring their superior firepower to bear on the human forces. "All ships, maximum effort." Admiral Morrison broadcast to every human vessel in the system. "This is our only chance to show them we're not easy prey." The real battle was just beginning. The surprise attack lasted exactly 17 minutes. For those brief moments, humanity looked like it might actually have a chance against the galactic hegemony. Lisa Harper's squadron managed to punch through the shields of an alien cruiser, sending the massive vessel spinning out of control. Colonial fighters swarmed around the larger alien ships like angry insects, their weapons finding weak points in the enemy armor. But the aliens were learning fast. Executor Zektar stood on his bridge, his crystalline features reflecting the glow of damage reports. Impressive, he admitted as his crew worked to restore full communications. No species has managed to coordinate such an attack during our initial contact. These humans show more tactical ability than expected. War leader Zektar hissed his agreement. Their technology is primitive, but their strategy shows cunning. Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps, Zektar agreed. But the demonstration ends now. The alien fleet's coordination systems came back online with devastating effect. Suddenly, every human ship found itself targeted by weapons that could crack asteroids. The UCS Defiance took a direct hit that vaporized half its hull. Lisa Harper barely managed to get her crew to the escape pods before her ship became a cloud of glowing debris. Tony Martinez watched helplessly as 3 of his destroyed ships were actually destroyed. This time permanently. "All ships scatter," he ordered, but it was too late. The aliens were no longer confused or surprised. They were angry. On the surface of New Geneva, Captain Ryan Mitchell stood in the colony's main square and watched the sky burn. Alien fighters screamed overhead, systematically destroying every structure larger than a house. The evacuation ships he had organized were being picked off one by one as they tried to reach orbit. Ryan, his sister Sarah, grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the underground shelters. "We have to go. The buildings are coming down." Ryan looked up at the massive alien ship hanging over their world like a dark moon. "They're not just defeating us," he said, his voice hollow with shock. "They're making an example of us." The systematic destruction of New Geneva took 4 hours. When it was over, humanity's most prosperous colony was nothing but smoking ruins and scattered refugee camps. 3 million people had called New Geneva home. Now barely 500,000 survived in overcrowded shelters, dependent on emergency supplies that wouldn't last a week. But the aliens were just getting started. Admiral Morrison received reports from across human space, each one worse than the last. The Mars orbital stations were gone. The asteroid mining facilities were rubble. Every military installation from Earth to the outer colonies had been reduced to scrap metal. Casualties? Morrison asked, though he dreaded the answer. Danny Rodriguez looked up from his reports, his face pale. "Preliminary estimates suggest 12 million dead or missing, sir. And that's just from the first wave of attacks." Dr. Amanda Price worked frantically in her hidden laboratory, trying to understand what had gone wrong. Her quantum virus had worked perfectly for those crucial first minutes. But the aliens had adapted with frightening speed, almost like they had experience dealing with this kind of attack. Their quantum network isn't just for communication, she realized, studying the captured data from the battle. It's a learning system. Every attack we make teaches them how to defend against it better. Captain Ben Carter, one of the few survivors from the stealth mission, brought her more bad news. "Amanda, I managed to scan one of their damaged ships before my team evacuated. These aren't their main forces. What do you mean?" "The ship classifications, the crew numbers, the weapon configurations, these are patrol vessels. Peacekeeping ships designed for dealing with minor uprisings. Their real military fleet hasn't even shown up yet." Amanda felt her heart sink. If these were just the ships they used for routine policing, what would their actual war fleet look like? The answer came 3 days later when Executor Zektar appeared on every human communication channel simultaneously. This time, his crystalline features showed no amusement at all. "People of Earth," he began, "your resistance has been noted and catalogued. Your tactical capabilities have been measured and found adequate for a primitive species. But your defiance has consequences." The transmission showed images from across human space. Massive new alien vessels, each one dwarfing the ships that had defeated humanity so easily, emerged from hyperspace. These weren't the sleek patrol craft of the first contact. These were weapons of war, designed to break entire civilizations. "Behold the third battle fleet of the Galactic Hegemony," Zektar continued. 144 vessels, carrying enough firepower to reduce your sun to ash. They will arrive in your system in 18 standard days. President Brooks watched the transmission from her emergency bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around her, the surviving leaders of humanity tried to process what they were seeing. "When the third fleet arrives, your choice will be simple," Zektar said. "Complete surrender or complete extinction. There will be no negotiation, no mercy, and no escape. You have shown that you cannot be trusted to submit peacefully. Therefore, your species will be Relocated to designated worlds where you can be properly supervised. The transmission ended with images of those designated worlds, barren planets where other conquered. Species lived in carefully controlled cities under constant alien surveillance. Prison worlds, essentially, where humanity would spend the rest of its existence. 18 days, Morrison said quietly. They're giving us 18 days to watch them come and know there's nothing we can do to stop them. But Dr. Price was already working on something new. In the wreckage of alien ships, she had found evidence that the hegemony wasn't as unified as they claimed. Some of the technology showed signs of sabotage, tiny flaws built into critical systems that would only be noticed by someone who knew exactly what to look for. Ben, she called to Captain Carter, I need you to gather every piece of alien wreckage you can find. I think some of their own people might be trying to help us. Meanwhile, in the ruins of New Geneva, Ryan Mitchell led a group of survivors through the destroyed colony. They were looking for anything useful in the rubble, but what they found was something far more valuable. A partially intact alien communication device. Can you make it work? Sarah asked as her brother studied the strange crystalline technology. Ryan thought about the millions of dead, about the invasion fleet coming to finish what the patrol ships had started, about the prison worlds where humanity would spend eternity as slaves. I don't know, he said, but I know someone who might. General Kevin Turner, Earth's supreme military commander, made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. If humanity couldn't match alien technology, and if conventional tactics had failed so completely, then it was time to abandon conventional warfare entirely. We're not fighting this war like civilized beings anymore, he told his assembled staff. They want to treat us like animals? Fine. Let's show them what Earth's apex predator looks like when it's cornered. The orders that went out from Turner's command center would have horrified humanity just a week earlier. Now, facing extinction, they seemed like the only hope for survival. Human warfare was about to evolve in ways that would terrify the galaxy. Dr. Price received the alien communication device that Ryan Mitchell had recovered. As she began to decode its contents, she discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in the quantum static were messages from other species within the hegemony, species that had been conquered centuries ago and had never stopped, looking for a way to fight back. They're not all willing. Participants, she whispered as the messages became clear. Some of them have been waiting for someone like us, someone crazy enough to actually fight. The war was about to take a turn that neither side expected. Humanity was about to discover that they weren't the only species in the galaxy that refused to stay conquered. 6 months had passed since the third battle fleet arrived in human space, and the galaxy was learning to fear a word it had never heard before. Humans. Captain Laura Stone stood on the bridge of the UCS Revenant, watching her tactical display with cold satisfaction. The ship didn't look like any vessel in Earth's original fleet. Its hull was painted matte black to absorb sensor sweeps, and its weapons were designed for one purpose: to kill aliens in ways that would make other aliens afraid to fight. Target confirmed, reported her weapons officer. Hegemony supply convoy, 3 cargo ships with light escort. Laura studied the formation. Under the old rules of war, she would disable the military escorts and leave the cargo ships alone. Civilian targets were off limits, but the old rules had died with New Geneva. Fire solution on all targets, she ordered. No survivors. The Revenant struck like a ghost, appearing from hyperspace directly in the middle of the convoy. Its weapons weren't the clean energy beams that characterized most space combat. Instead, human engineers had created something far more disturbing: virus bombs that ate through alien hull materials, turning their ships into expanding clouds of corrosive gas. The alien crews had just enough time to send distress signals before their vessels dissolved around them. Laura listened to their final transmissions with no emotion at all. They were speaking in languages she didn't understand, but terror sounded the same in any tongue. Jump complete. No pursuit detected, her navigator reported. Good. Set course for the next target. Laura turned to her communications officer. Send the recording to Fleet Command. Make sure our alien friends know what happened here. This was the new human strategy: psychological warfare on an interstellar scale. Every attack was recorded and broadcast across hegemony space. Every defeat was designed to maximize fear among alien populations who had never imagined that warfare could be so brutal. Commander Nick Hayes led a different kind of mission from the bridge of the UCS Phantom. His ship looked exactly like an alien merchant vessel, complete with false identification codes and a crew trained to speak several hegemony languages. They had spent 3 weeks establishing themselves as harmless traders in the Villani sector, docking with the space station now, reported his pilot. All systems reading normal. The Villani space station was a major hub for the insectoid species that served as the hegemony's primary engineers. Thousands of alien civilians lived and worked there, maintaining the infrastructure that kept their civilization running. Under the old rules, it would have been an illegal target. Nick activated the antimatter charges hidden throughout his ship's hull. For New Geneva, he whispered and pressed the detonation trigger. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Villani station, along with 40,000 aliens, simply ceased to exist. The psychological impact rippled through hegemony space as civilians realized that nowhere was safe from human retaliation. Meanwhile, Dr. Amanda Price worked in her expanded laboratory, now hidden in the ruins of an asteroid mining facility. The messages she had decoded from conquered species within the hegemony had led to an underground network of alien resistance fighters who had been waiting centuries for an opportunity like this. The, Sekthari Rebellion wants to know if we can supply them with our virus bomb technology, reported Captain Ben Carter, who now served as her liaison to the alien underground. They're planning to hit 3 major hegemony shipyards simultaneously. Amanda looked at the technical specifications on her screen. The weapons she had designed were terrifying even by human standards. Giving them to alien rebels would escalate the conflict beyond anything the galaxy had seen in millennia. Do it, she said. If we're going to fight monsters, we need to become monsters ourselves. The transformation of humanity hadn't gone unnoticed by the hegemony leadership. Executor Zektar stood before the High Council, explaining how a primitive species had managed to destabilize 3 sectors in just 6 months. They don't fight like any species we've encountered, he reported to the assembled representatives of 12 civilizations. They target civilians. They use weapons designed to maximize suffering, and they've somehow established contact with our conquered populations. War leader Sekthar's scales rippled with agitation. My own people are using human weapons against our facilities. 3 of our major shipyards have been destroyed, and we've lost an entire patrol fleet to these virus bombs they've created. More disturbing, added the Villani representative, her insectoid voice clicking with anxiety, is their psychological warfare. Our civilian populations are demanding withdrawal from human space. They've never seen warfare conducted with such creativity. Zektar nodded grimly. They've made war itself into a weapon. Every attack is designed not just to inflict damage, but to spread fear throughout our territories. The decision was made to escalate. The 3rd Battle Fleet was reinforced with elements from 5 other fleets, bringing the total force to over 400 ships. But more importantly, they authorized the use of weapons that had been banned for over 1,000 years. Captain Ryan Mitchell received the intelligence report from his command post in the ruins of New Geneva. His sister Sarah, now his communications officer, looked up from her console with a pale face. Ryan, they're bringing planet killers to the Sol system. Weapons capable of cracking Earth's crust. Ryan studied the data. The hegemony was finally treating humanity as a serious threat, which meant they were about to use serious weapons. How long until they arrive? 3 weeks, maybe less. Ryan activated his communicator, sending an encrypted message to resistance cells across human space. If the aliens wanted to escalate, humanity would show them what real escalation looked like. Dr. Price had been working on something that terrified even her. Deep in her hidden laboratory, she stood before a device that could theoretically destabilize entire star systems. The quantum cascade generator was based on technology stolen from a dozen different hegemony species, refined and weaponized in ways that violated every law of civilized warfare. Are you sure about this? Asked Captain Carter, staring at the device that was barely larger than a briefcase. The projections show it could affect inhabited systems hundreds of light years away. Amanda thought about the billions of humans who would die when the planet killers arrived. They want to destroy our world? Then maybe it's time they learned what it feels like to lose theirs. But the most significant development was happening in the shadows of the war. Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell had established regular contact with alien resistance groups across hegemony space. The Sekthari had provided intelligence on fleet movements. The Villani had shared technical data on hegemony ship designs. Even some of the gaseous Morden had begun feeding information to human forces. "It's bigger than we thought," Sarah reported to her brother. "The hegemony isn't just a coalition of willing species. Half of them were conquered, just like they're trying to conquer us. They've been waiting for someone to show them that resistance was possible." Ryan looked at the tactical display showing human raids across 3 sectors. The black ships of the human fleet were spreading terror through alien space, but they were also inspiring something else. Hope among the conquered species that had given up centuries ago. Captain Eddie Brooks, leading a squadron of stealth fighters, intercepted a hegemony communication that changed his understanding of the entire war. The message was from a Sekthari commander to a human contact, and it contained information that made his blood run cold. "Admiral, Morrison needs to see this immediately," he told his communications officer. The message revealed that the hegemony's expansion wasn't about conquest for its own sake. They were fleeing something even worse than themselves. Something at the edge of the galaxy that consumed entire civilizations. The rigid control they imposed on conquered species was actually preparation for a greater war against an enemy that made the hegemony look peaceful by comparison. Admiral Morrison read the intelligence report in his hidden command center, trying to process its implications. "They're not the real enemy," he said quietly to Danny Rodriguez. "They're trying to unite the galaxy against something else." Danny nodded, studying the data on threats from beyond known space. "The question is, sir, do we help them fight this greater enemy, or do we let it destroy them and hope we can handle what's left?" Morrison looked out at the stars, where human ships continued their campaign of terror against alien worlds. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of mapped space, something was coming that made even the mighty hegemony afraid. The war was about to become much more complicated. 2 years after first contact, the galaxy had a new nightmare: the Black Armada. Captain Matt Thompson stood on the bridge of the UCS Harbinger, watching the massive fleet that humanity had built from salvaged alien technology and desperate innovation. 300 ships painted in light-absorbing black, each one carrying weapons that made civilized species sick to contemplate. The Harbinger itself was a monument to human engineering. Built around the captured hull of a hegemony dreadnought, it had been fitted with every terrible weapon that Dr. Amanda Price's team could devise: virus bombs, quantum cascade devices, and psychological warfare transmitters that could drive enemy crews insane with fear. "Admiral Morrison's signal confirmed," reported his communications officer. "Operation Final Answer is authorized," Matt nodded grimly. After 2 years of guerrilla warfare, humanity was ready to make their ultimate statement. The target was Hegemony Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Coalition that had demanded their surrender so long ago. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the fleet movements from his flagship, the UCS Nemesis. The irony wasn't lost on him, that humanity's greatest military victory would be launched against aliens who might not be their real enemy. But the die had been cast months ago when the hegemony brought planet killers to the Sol system. "All ships report ready." "Sir," said Danny Rodriguez, now promoted to commander and serving as Morrison's chief of staff. "The alien resistance cells are in position. Dr. Price's cascade weapons are armed and targeted." Morrison opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Morrison to all ships of the Black Armada. Today we show the galaxy that Earth doesn't kneel to anyone. Today we prove that humanity belongs among the stars as equals, not subjects. Execute Operation Final Answer." The attack on Hegemony Prime was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Black Armada didn't announce their arrival or demand surrender. They simply appeared in the system and began systematically destroying everything that could fight back. Captain Laura Stone led the first wave aboard the Revenant. Her ship's sensors locked onto the massive orbital defense platforms that protected the alien capital. But instead of attacking directly, she deployed her most horrifying weapon: millions of microscopic drones that ate through metal and reproduced exponentially. Within hours, the orbital defenses were collapsing under their own weight as the nanite swarms consumed their structural supports. The psychological effect on the defending aliens was exactly what human planners had intended. They weren't just being defeated, they were being consumed. Commander Nick Hayes brought his squadron in low over the planet's surface, targeting not military installations, but the communication networks that kept hegemony civilization functioning. His virus bombs didn't just destroy the transmitter stations, They left behind quantum static that made the wreckage actively hostile to alien technology. But the most significant moment came when Captain Ryan Mitchell led a ground assault team directly into the Hegemony High Council chambers. The aliens had expected human soldiers to behave like civilized warriors. Instead, they found themselves facing beings who fought like predators that had been cornered and left with nothing to lose. Executor Zektar was captured alive, along with 3 other members of the High Council. For the first time in millennia, the leadership of the Galactic Hegemony found themselves as prisoners rather than conquerors. In the interrogation chamber aboard the Harbinger, Dr. Amanda Price studied the crystalline being who had started this war with his ultimatum. Zektar no longer showed the confident arrogance of their first meeting. Instead, his faceted features reflected something that looked almost like relief. "Your species fights like nothing we've encountered," he said in perfect English. "You don't just defeat enemies. You traumatize them. You've turned warfare itself into a weapon of terror." "You demanded our surrender," Amanda replied coldly. "You destroyed our worlds and killed our people. What did you expect?" Zektar's crystalline body shifted, creating new patterns in the light. "We expected you to submit as every other species has done for 4,000 years. We never expected you to become something worse than us." "Worse? The hegemony conquers worlds to save them," Zektar continued. "What you've seen as oppression was actually preparation. There is something coming from beyond the galactic edge, something that makes our worst actions look like mercy. We've been trying to unite the galaxy's military forces for centuries, preparing for a war against an enemy that doesn't just conquer civilizations." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of enemy?" "They call themselves the Devourers. They don't come from our dimension, and they don't want territory or resources. They consume entire realities, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Our expansion, our rigid control over conquered species, everything we've done has been to build the largest possible military force for when they arrive." The revelation changed everything. In a secure briefing room aboard the Nemesis, Admiral Morrison gathered his senior staff to hear Zektar's complete intelligence report on the extra-dimensional threat. "The first signs appeared 300 years ago," the alien explained to the assembled human officers. "Entire star systems simply vanished, leaving not even debris behind. Our deep space monitoring stations detected quantum signatures unlike anything in our reality." Captain Matt Thompson studied the data with growing alarm. "How long until they reach inhabited space?" "Our calculations suggested we had perhaps 50 more years to prepare," Zektar replied. "But your war against us has accelerated their approach. The quantum disruptions from your cascade weapons appear to be acting like a beacon, drawing them toward this region of space." Danny Rodriguez looked up from his analysis. "Are you saying we've made the situation worse?" "I'm saying that what you intended as weapons against us may have doomed the entire galaxy." President Catherine Brooks, now governing from a heavily fortified bunker on Earth, received Morrison's report with a mixture of horror and disbelief. The war that had transformed humanity into the galaxy's most feared species might have sealed everyone's fate. But Dr. Price was already working on solutions. In her expanded laboratory, now housed aboard the Harbinger, she studied the data on Devourer technology with the same intensity she had once applied to defeating the hegemony. "If they're extra-dimensional, they have to follow different physical laws," she explained to Captain Ben Carter. "Our quantum cascade weapons affect them because they disrupt the barriers between realities. We might be able to turn that weakness against them." The first Devourer scouts appeared at the galactic rim 3 weeks later. Captain Eddie Brooks, now commanding a reconnaissance squadron, was among the first humans to encounter the new threat. His report sent shockwaves through both human and hegemony command structures. "They're not ships in any sense we understand," he transmitted back to Fleet Command. "They're more like mobile holes in space itself. Our sensors can't get coherent readings and our weapons pass right through them without effect." But the most disturbing part of his report was what happened to the planets they touched. Entire worlds simply ceased to exist, leaving behind empty space where star systems had been for billions of years. Admiral Morrison made the decision that would define humanity's future among the stars. Standing before representatives of both human and alien forces, he announced the formation of an unprecedented alliance. "The hegemony demanded our submission," he said. We answered with war. But now we face something that threatens everyone, human and alien alike. I propose a new arrangement. We fight together as equals, or we all die separately. Executor Zektar, speaking for the hegemony leadership, accepted the proposal with one condition. Humanity's Black Armada will lead the combined fleet. Your species has proven that you understand warfare in ways we never imagined. Perhaps what we saw as savagery is actually what the galaxy needs to survive. The final scene played out in the combined fleet staging area, where human ships painted in menacing black formed up alongside the crystalline vessels of the hegemony. Captain Laura Stone watched from the Revenant as alien crews struggled to adapt to human tactical doctrines that emphasized psychological warfare and unconventional strategies. Strange to think we were trying to kill each other last month. Observed her weapons officer. Laura nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed Devourer forces advancing steadily through the outer rim. Maybe that's what it took to get their attention. Sometimes you have to become a monster to fight monsters. Admiral Morrison stood in his command center, looking out at the largest military force in galactic history. The Black Armada had grown to include alien vessels crewed by beings who had learned to fight like humans. The galaxy's nightmare had become its last hope. All fleets, this is Admiral Morrison, he announced across the combined armada. We're about to face an enemy that wants to erase us from existence itself. They expect to find a galaxy of civilized species following predictable patterns. Instead, they're going to discover what happens when Earth's apex predator decides to protect its territory. The fleet began moving toward the galactic rim, where an interdimensional war was about to begin. Humanity had come to the stars as explorers and become warriors. Now, as the combined forces of